What if you suddenly lost everything and had no one by your side? Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? The fluorescent lights overhead reflected off the polished wood table in the Pentagon briefing room, casting long, anxious shadows over the faces seated before Elon Musk. Reporters lined the back wall, pens poised, smartphones recording. Senior military officers in crisp uniforms, legislative aides in tailored suits, and civilian analysts in dark blazers all faced him, a figure both admired and scrutinized. No one moved as Elon leaned into the podium and spoke with quiet intensity. Grok is the next-generation intelligent assistant built for resilience, security, and ethical autonomy. A silence followed, so dense you could hear nervous breaths. Elon's heart pounded, but outwardly he remained calm. Cameras clicked. The moment hung like a held breath over every listener. Before this moment, xAI and its defiant brainchild, Grok, were just ideas, bold, sometimes controversial, always under the harsh glare of headlines. But right now, the future of that vision stood at a pivotal crossroads. Behind closed doors, far from public view, Elon had spent months overseeing the project's development, quietly guiding a select team of brilliant minds: Nadia Sanchez, a systems architect with piercing insight; Marcus Cole, a cybersecurity genius with a skeptic's instinct; Dr. Aisha Rivera, an ethicist whose moral compass kept the company grounded. Together, they'd taken Grok from a rallying cry at a Silicon Valley think tank to a prototype that could parse classified data, counter disinformation campaigns, and assist decision-makers under pressure. Now, they were here, in the belly of the beast, the Pentagon. Elon scanned the audience. Every pair of eyes reflected something different. Curiosity, suspicion, hope, doubt. Behind one stern general sat a young analyst, phone out, eyes flicking between Elon and live tweet updates. On the floor, reporters shared eager smiles, sensing a blockbuster moment. No pressure. Elon pressed forward. Grok was designed to exceed existing AI systems in three critical areas: adaptive learning under adversarial conditions, explainable reasoning aligned with U.S. democratic values, and robust security to prevent misuse or compromise. His voice was measured, intentional. In other words, Grok can think like an ally, not a tool. A murmur rippled through the audience. The statement struck a chord and a nerve. That word, ally, carried weight. They wanted a weapon, he offered a partner. Eyes narrowed. Ships had sunk trusting the wrong ally. The general's hand raised slightly, unseen. Elon nodded. Question. Mr. Musk, how do you ensure Grok cannot be manipulated or turned against us? The question was polite, probing. Elon accepted it. He drew in a breath. Multiple layers. First, encrypted, physically separated hardware running inside U.S. facilities only. Second, transparent reasoning. Grok produces a traceable logic chain with every suggestion it makes. Third, continuous red team audits by independent third parties. His gaze didn't waver. We used adversarial collaboration, Ethical Labs US, MindGuard Alliance, and leading universities, to test every vulnerability. We didn't want an assistant, we wanted a trusted advisor with moral guardrails. A silence followed. But it wasn't the cold hush of doubt, it was curiosity stretching its limbs. The analyst in the audience typed rapidly. A fly buzzed. Elon felt sweat bead on his brow, but his face stayed calm. Explainable reasoning was a phrase they noticed, AI that didn't hide behind code, that could justify itself. Someone on the edge of the room let out a breath. Elon seized the opening. Let me show you. A tech aide tapped a tablet behind him, projecting a sleek, interactive dashboard onto a screen. Colorful nodes and text cascades bloomed across the display. At the center was Grok Defense version 1.2. Elon clicked. Here's a simulated briefing. Incoming intelligence. A drone swarm detected crossing restricted airspace near U.S. ground units. Grok ingests classified feed streams, cross-references with geopolitical databases, live thermal input, even maritime satellite logs. Then it runs 4 parallel threat assessment models, ranks them, and offers operational recommendations, each tied to its reasoning chain. Node A flagged possible reconnaissance, Node B flagged missile threat, Node C prioritized civilian risk zones. You see the logic paths under each bullet point. He tapped again, revealing multi-layered diagrams showing how the AI arrived at its conclusions. That transparency is essential. If Grok suggests an interdiction, commanders know why. If its logic is flawed, they see where, no black boxes. Heads dipped in thought. A journalist scribbled, "No black boxes," in big letters. Elon pressed on. We're also securing hardware at 3 levels, government-grade secure enclaves, physical air gap checks at national labs, and live monitoring by independent watchdogs. We're not selling an app, we're delivering a responsibility framework. The room was silent. Even skeptics paused. Then, like a spark in dry grass, a voice, "What's the cost?" The blunt question, almost an interruption, came from a uniformed colonel. Elon gave a small, knowing smile. We estimate the full package at $200 million, research, deployment, training, ongoing audits. A substantial investment, but small compared with the cost of an unforeseen AI failure in mission-critical operations. He paused. Especially if Grok prevents one catastrophe, it pays for itself many times over. Phones tapped. Eyes met. The general leaned forward. Elon tapped the screen, switched to a slide showing a global threat map with overlays of AI-generated insights. Further, we're committed to working side by side with the DoD. We won't hand off Grok and disappear. Training, onboarding, support, field adaptation, all included. He gestured to his team seated behind. Nadia caught his eyes and nodded ever so slightly. They'd poured nights into this. This isn't Silicon Valley evangelism, Elon concluded. It's a strategic alliance, the best of advanced AI carefully integrated into defense, with ethical transparency and mutual accountability. If you want a simple tool, maybe we aren't for you. But if you want a partner that thinks like you, reasons with you, and explains itself, that's Grok. The doors opened. The session ended. Phones and pens snapped closed. The audience didn't rise, as if stunned into silence. No immediate applause, no shouts. Just the faint hum of ambition in the room. Elon stepped down, face calm, heart pounding. Reporters surged forward. Microphones thrust. Over the din, someone yelled, "Mr. Musk, what about civilian surveillance concerns?" Elon raised a hand in a practiced gesture. Grok has no access outside DoD sandbox environments. No civilian data. No social metrics. Strict compartmentalization. A reporter pushed, but leaked code last month showed metadata tracking. What's your response? Elon paused. That was a beta test in a closed environment. Lessons learned have already been implemented. Any Grok DoD release uses hardened code, with dual audits. He fixed his gaze. We're past that. We've moved forward. A flash of cameras. He turned and began walking toward the exit. As he passed Nadia, their eyes met. No words exchanged, but everything said, they'd taken the first step. Behind them, the Pentagon conference room emptied, but the echoes lingered. In the hallway, reporters swarmed again. Elon raised his voice just enough for them to hear. Grok for good, he said, voice low and firm. Trust through transparency. They followed him as he strode down the corridor, the xAI team in tow, marching into a future no Silicon Valley pitch deck could have prepared them for. The first chapter of this story just began, and the stakes have never been higher. Elon Musk wasn't born a tech titan. Long before SpaceX launches, Tesla stock spikes, and xAI headlines, there was a boy in Pretoria, South Africa, nose buried in science fiction novels, obsessed with space, electricity, and machines. He was quiet, often lost in his own world, sketching futuristic inventions in spiral notebooks and writing lines of BASIC on his Commodore VIC-20. Kids bullied him, teachers didn't quite understand him. But the world inside his mind? It made sense. It had logic, creativity, and potential, things reality often lacked. His earliest memory of ambition came not from a classroom or a laboratory, but from reading The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. It wasn't just the humor or interstellar antics, it was the central idea: intelligence, properly applied, could change everything. That idea stuck with him. It drove him across continents, from Pretoria to Canada, from Queen's University to the University of Pennsylvania. He chased computer science, physics, and entrepreneurial dreams with the relentlessness of someone racing time. There was always a sense that Elon believed the future was coming too slowly. That humanity's potential was stalled. And that he, somehow, had to unstick it. In college, while other students relaxed at parties, Elon talked endlessly about colonizing Mars and neural links between man and machine. Professors often called him brilliant but intense. He took it as a compliment. His dorm room was full of wires, books, and caffeine. Few friends, but deep conversations. One roommate once said, "He doesn't talk small." If Elon's interested in a topic, it's either going to save humanity or end civilization. That wasn't exaggeration, it was Elon's guiding philosophy. When he first landed in Silicon Valley during the 90s dot-com boom, he was already thinking bigger than websites or IPOs. He co-founded Zip2, sold it, then co-founded X.com, which became PayPal. With every venture, he reinvested, not just money, but vision. His friends urged caution. He urged acceleration. There were lonely nights. After PayPal's sale, while others celebrated, Elon sat in a nearly empty office with just a whiteboard and a model rocket. He'd poured nearly every dollar into SpaceX, Tesla, and Solar City. "Sleep in the factory if you must," he once told a young engineer. "Just don't slow down." The early 2000s tested that philosophy brutally. Rockets exploded, cars failed safety tests, factories caught fire, media mocked him as reckless. Even friends questioned his sanity. He almost lost everything, twice. But through every failure, Elon held to one belief: humans could do better, and AI would be a key to unlocking that better future. Not replacing us, but augmenting us. Elon's personal life was often chaotic, a whirlwind of marriages, children, estrangements, and reconciliations. His relationship with his brother Kimball was one of the few steady constants. Kimball, the more grounded Musk, often acted as Elon's mirror. They'd debate for hours over ethics, society, what progress should look like. "We have to move fast," Elon would say. "People are dying of slow progress." Kimball would counter, "Not if speed makes us blind." That tension stayed with Elon. It was what later made him obsessed with ethics in AI. It wasn't enough for machines to think, they had to think clearly, morally. After years of publicly warning about AI risks, saying things like "AI is summoning the demon," people began dismissing him as alarmist. Meanwhile, he was quietly building something different. He didn't want AI to dominate us. He wanted it to work with us, for us. Enter xAI. Founded in relative secrecy, xAI wasn't born with fanfare or investor blitzes. Elon gathered a small team, many former OpenAI contributors, engineers from Tesla's Autopilot project, and thinkers who valued transparency over hype. He didn't want another chatbot. He wanted Grok. The name came from a 1961 sci-fi novel, Stranger in a Strange Land. In it, to grok meant to understand something fully, deeply, to merge with it. Elon found it poetic. His grok wouldn't just process language, it would grok meaning. It would understand humanity in a way no algorithm had done before. The early months of xAI were frantic and full of risk. Offices changed weekly, security was intense, NDAs ironclad. Every employee had to believe in the mission, build a safe, ethical, deeply transparent AI that could be trusted with sensitive decisions. Not just for consumers, but for society at large. Nadia Sanchez was one of the first recruits. A brilliant systems architect with a degree from MIT and years at Lockheed, she was skeptical of AI hype but intrigued by Elon's vision. They met at a closed-door AI ethics roundtable. Elon laid out his framework. Imagine an AI that never hides its logic. That tells you exactly why it made a decision. One that doesn't manipulate, but reveals. Could you help build that? She said yes, but with conditions. Transparency. Oversight. Independence. Elon agreed. That was the tone from the start. Marcus Cole joined next. A cybersecurity expert with NSA experience, he wasn't dazzled by tech titans. In fact, he distrusted most of them. But Elon's blunt honesty won him over. "I'm not trying to be liked," Elon told him in their first meeting. "I'm trying to prevent disaster." Marcus, used to spin, appreciated the candor. And finally, Dr. Aisha Rivera, a moral philosopher turned AI ethicist. She'd lectured at Stanford, written papers warning against unregulated AI development, and consulted for multiple think tanks. Elon read one of her papers, The Tyranny of the Invisible Algorithm, and sent her an email with one line, "Let's do it better." Together, they became the core of xAI. And they began building Grok. Not just an AI system, but an entire framework for responsible intelligence. From the start, Grok was different. Its training data was clean, its decision trees open source, its architecture designed to include ethical counterbalances. Every recommendation it gave came with explanations and alternate perspectives. It was like talking to a thoughtful advisor, not a robotic oracle. Still, challenges came fast. Critics argued Elon's personal views would influence Grok's values. Elon responded by building in diversity of opinion. "Grok isn't me," he said at a press conference. "It's a synthesis of collective reason." Others doubted it could scale. The codebase was massive, and maintaining transparency slowed it down. But Nadia and Marcus kept pushing. They found ways to accelerate processing while preserving explainability. And then came the leak. A rogue employee, still unidentified, leaked Grok's prototype logs, sparking media frenzy. Headlines screamed about Grok's surveillance potential, accusing Elon of building a military AI under civilian disguise. Elon was furious. Not just at the betrayal, but at the misunderstanding. Grok doesn't surveil. It observes data within strict walls. It's not a spy, it's a scholar. But damage was done. Investors pulled back. Journalists dug in. The Pentagon, which had shown early interest in Grok's defensive applications, went silent. For weeks, morale at xAI plunged. Staff whispered about abandoning the defense pivot, returning to civilian applications. That's when Elon gathered the team, late one night, in a dim conference room lit only by projector glow. He didn't give a speech. He just looked at them and said, "This is why we don't quit." He pulled up a simulation Grok had run the night before, a humanitarian crisis response to an earthquake in Southeast Asia. The AI had analyzed satellite imagery, weather patterns, population data, and suggested optimized routes for aid delivery. No other system could do this. Not with this speed, this clarity, this fairness. He turned to Nadia. "You built this." Then Marcus. "You kept it secure." Then Dr. Rivera. "You made sure it saw people, not just numbers." They sat in silence. And something shifted. Grok wasn't just an AI anymore. It was their mission. They decided, collectively, to push forward, and go back to the Pentagon. This time, not with hype or promises, but with results. Elon personally rewrote portions of the presentation. Nadia coded a new simulation framework. Marcus ran triple encryption audits. Dr. Rivera drafted a public ethics charter. They knew the room they were walking into would be tough. Military officials weren't won over by flashy demos. But they also respected discipline, innovation, and courage. And now, xAI had all three. The journey that led Elon from a bullied boy in Pretoria to the edge of a $200 million Pentagon contract was one of obsession, failure, vision, and perseverance. But it wasn't just about Elon anymore. It was about the people he'd gathered, the mission they shared, and the future they were determined to shape. The first meeting had been a test. The next would decide everything. Tucked away in a converted warehouse in Palo Alto, the headquarters of xAI wasn't flashy. No glass skyscrapers or digital billboards, just a matte gray building with an unmarked door and reinforced windows. Inside, though, it was anything but ordinary. The air buzzed with quiet intensity, whiteboards lined the walls, monitors pulsed with neural networks mid-training, and conversations skipped between machine learning, national security protocols, and philosophy. The hum of servers wasn't just background noise. It was the sound of a new future being engineered. xAI was Elon Musk's most secretive venture yet, conceived not to compete with Silicon Valley giants, but to do what they wouldn't. Where other companies optimized for profit, clicks, and shareholder value, xAI was built around one mission: to develop artificial intelligence that could reason transparently, act ethically, and assist humans in the most high-stakes environments. It wasn't about convenience or consumer personalization, it was about trust, reliability, and service to humanity. At the center of it all was Grok. Grok wasn't just another AI chatbot or algorithmic assistant. It was a learning entity, trained from the ground up to think, explain, and adapt. Built on a proprietary architecture that combined large language models with contextual reasoning frameworks, Grok didn't just process information, it understood its implications. Ask Grok a question, and it didn't just offer an answer. It showed its reasoning path, counterarguments, confidence scores, even ethical flags. If an answer could be biased, Grok said so. If it lacked context, Grok asked for more. This was not an AI built to impress, it was built to be trusted. The core team responsible for Grok's development was small but formidable. First, there was Nadia Sanchez. Her mind was a map of systems, a living schematic of architecture and logic. She spoke in patterns and structure, able to identify weaknesses in code like a conductor hearing a missed note in an orchestra. Recruited from Lockheed's Advanced Research Division, she had designed defense-grade networks and once led a project to harden communication relays for nuclear subs. She was skeptical of Elon at first. She'd turned down offers from Google, Meta, and even DARPA. What convinced her to join xAI was a midnight conversation with Elon about the limits of explainability in AI systems. "I don't want a black box," Elon had said, eyes blazing. "I want a lighthouse. Something that doesn't just function, it illuminates." That line stuck with her. She joined the next day. Then came Marcus Cole. Tall, quiet, intense. A former NSA contractor turned cybersecurity watchdog. He was meticulous, sometimes paranoid, but in the world of AI, paranoia was a survival skill. Marcus's job wasn't to build, it was to break. He led the red team operations, running Grok against every exploit, every social engineering trap, every logic-bending prompt imaginable. "You don't know your AI," he'd often say, "until you've tried to turn it into a monster." He was critical of Elon's public bravado, often pushing back in internal meetings. But he respected the mission. "You're trying to teach an AI morality," he once told Elon. "I'm here to make sure it never forgets what immorality looks like." And then there was Dr. Aisha Rivera. A philosopher in a lab coat, she brought a level of moral scrutiny that few tech companies would tolerate, much less invite. She'd made headlines years before for calling out bias in predictive policing algorithms. At xAI, her job was to define Grok's ethical framework, how it balanced risk, autonomy, and human dignity. Every line of code passed through a philosophical filter. Every dataset was examined for bias, exclusion, or unintended consequences. She often clashed with the engineers. They'd argue over latency, accuracy, efficiency. She'd counter with responsibility, equity, transparency. If Grok ever has to choose between being fast and being fair, she said in a heated meeting, it chooses fair. Every time. The triad of Nadia, Marcus, and Dr. Rivera formed a kind of checks and balances within xAI. Each brought a different lens, systems, security, and ethics. Elon, for his part, wasn't hands-off. He wasn't the kind of founder who appeared for quarterly updates and flashy press. He was in the trenches, reviewing architecture diagrams with Nadia, debating audit logs with Marcus, scribbling ethical dilemmas on whiteboards with Dr. Rivera. His energy was relentless. Some called him a genius, others a chaos vector. Both were true. The real work began when Grok moved from simulation to live data testing. Early iterations were promising. Grok could interpret classified intelligence reports, cross-verify with satellite data, and suggest actions with a degree of nuance unheard of in AI systems. But it wasn't perfect. In one simulation, Grok flagged a heat signature in the South China Sea as a potential naval threat. Upon further review, it was a fishing vessel. The mistake wasn't in the data, it was in the weight Grok had assigned to regional tension markers. Dr. Rivera insisted they dig deeper. Why did it assume aggression? She asked. The answer: one training subset had overrepresented military movements in disputed waters. A silent, invisible bias, just a statistical pattern. But in national defense, those patterns could lead to war. So they retrained the model. Twice. And Grok learned. That was the breakthrough. Unlike earlier systems, Grok didn't just update its parameters, it adapted its understanding. It started to flag its own blind spots. It began asking for additional context when it sensed incomplete data. Nadia wept the first time Grok paused during a real-time test and said, confidence threshold low. Recommend human verification. It was a small sentence. But it meant Grok understood its own limits. Still, getting Grok ready for government use was another level entirely. The Pentagon didn't just want accuracy. They wanted security, auditability, command chain integration, and zero surprises. xAI built a hardened version, Grok Defense, separated from consumer data, locked behind multiple air gaps, monitored in real time by both xAI and third-party watchdogs. Marcus designed the security protocols himself, even embedding tripwire scripts that could kill the system if anomalies appeared. Better a dead AI than a rogue one, he said flatly. The ethics board, formed by Dr. Rivera, included not just xAI staff but outside experts, military ethicists, historians, civil rights advocates. They reviewed every update, every change. Sometimes it slowed development. Sometimes it caused friction. But Elon insisted it stay. Speed matters, he said in one meeting, but trust matters more. Meanwhile, the media was catching wind. Leaks from former employees hinted that Musk was building a defense AI. Critics screamed, militarization of intelligence. Supporters cheered him on as a visionary pushing back against bureaucratic gridlock. Elon stayed quiet publicly. Internally, he pushed harder. Grok wasn't about war, he argued, it was about prevention. It was about giving humans better tools to make better decisions. If we don't build this right, he warned, someone else will build it wrong. The tipping point came when a small DoD agency invited xAI to an informal demo. They expected a tech curiosity, maybe a cool presentation. What they got was Grok identifying vulnerabilities in an active cyber espionage campaign and recommending mitigation steps within 30 seconds. The room fell silent. Elon didn't smile. He just said, "That's version 1. Word spread. A formal pitch was scheduled. Preparation began. The team worked around the clock, not just polishing Grok but building layers of assurance. Nadia led stress tests, pushing Grok's systems to the edge. Marcus ran penetration drills, trying to force the AI into hallucinations or exploits. Dr. Rivera finalized the ethical declaration to be presented with the tech specs. When the day arrived, the team gathered in a side room at the Pentagon. Nerves were high. Elon looked calm, but his foot tapped restlessly. Nadia stared at the floor. Marcus triple-checked the air-gapped server. Dr. Rivera rehearsed her section under her breath. Then the doors opened. They entered. And the presentation began. Elon stepped forward, outlined the mission, the team, the technology. He didn't pitch it as a product, he described it as a partnership. A system that didn't replace human judgment, but enhanced it. That supported officers, not overrode them. That didn't just make decisions, it explained them. Grok responded to real-time prompts from the audience. It analyzed a hypothetical threat scenario, explained its conclusions, flagged uncertainty, and even suggested which human experts should review its findings. The room was still. Then the questions began, tough, probing, skeptical. Elon answered each with a mixture of data and directness. And slowly, something shifted. The tone moved from doubt to curiosity. From resistance to consideration. By the end of the session, one senior official approached Elon privately. "If Grok works the way you say," he said, "it could change how we operate. But if it doesn't, the consequences could be global." Elon nodded. "That's why we're doing it the hard way." And with that, xAI's journey into the heart of government began. It wouldn't be easy. Ahead lay scrutiny, legal battles, ethics debates, and more. But Grok was no longer a concept. It was a reality. And it was just getting started. The following week was a storm. Not outside, Washington was its usual mix of smog and sirens, but inside the corridors of the Pentagon, the presentation from xAI had left more than a few high-ranking officials rattled. They'd expected a flashy demo, maybe some PR-laced promises from Elon Musk. Instead, they got something that felt like it didn't belong to the future, it felt like it belonged to right now. A functioning AI that not only absorbed intelligence faster than a team of analysts but explained its reasoning clearly, without hiding behind technical jargon. And more than that, it asked for ethical guidance when it wasn't sure. It wasn't a weapon. It was an advisor. But that didn't mean everyone was ready to trust it. Behind closed doors, skepticism took over. In a secure meeting room 2 floors below the surface, a group of top brass from the Department of Defense sat in quiet tension. General Boyd, a seasoned intelligence commander with 30 years of field experience, sat at the head of the table. He didn't like surprises, and Grok had been a big one. "So we're just going to let a billionaire's private AI sit in our command centers and tell us how to run our missions?" he asked, voice low but tight. "It's more than that," replied Deputy Secretary Ellen Maddox, flipping through a briefing folder. "It's a framework, not a directive. Musk's team is offering full transparency, audit logs, even a civilian ethics board. This isn't Palantir or the old NSA playbook. Transparency means nothing if you don't understand the system," Boyd snapped. "These models can be manipulated. And we don't control it, he does. He's offering to let us embed our own oversight," Maddox said. "They've proposed co-governance protocols. Shared infrastructure. Independent testing." Another voice entered the room. Colonel Davis, head of Joint AI Integration. "Sir, I've reviewed the logs from their demo. Grok isn't operating like the other LLMs we've tested. It's slower, yes. But it's self-monitoring. It flags internal uncertainty. I've never seen that before. Boyd grunted. It's too good to be true. Across the country, at xAI headquarters, the atmosphere was the opposite of calm. Elon paced in the center conference room, barely sipping the coffee he'd been handed. They're stalling, he muttered. We walked in with a transparent AI advisor more capable than any system in their current rotation, and they're afraid of it. Nadia, seated at the edge of the room, pulled up a live Pentagon server response log. They're testing our claims, she said. They've rerun the demo models 4 times through a military sandbox. No signs of backdoors, hallucinations, or ethical failures. But they're dragging their feet. They don't trust us yet. Because we're not part of their system, Elon said. They're not used to outsiders walking in and offering something that actually works. Marcus, ever the realist, chimed in. To be fair, Elon, we're asking them to integrate a private AI platform into national security infrastructure. If the shoe were on the other foot, wouldn't you be cautious too? Elon didn't answer. He knew Marcus was right. But time was running out. They'd spent over 9 months preparing Grok defense, millions in infrastructure, weeks coordinating with legal teams and compliance experts, and now the deal was in limbo. Worse, rumors were spreading. The media had latched onto the term military AI, and was twisting it into headlines that suggested Skynet, not Grok. Musk's name added fuel to the fire. Some praised him as a maverick innovator, others labeled him a reckless disruptor. That afternoon, xAI's ethics board convened for an emergency virtual session. Dr. Aisha Rivera sat center frame in her home office, framed by shelves of books and a whiteboard filled with notes about moral responsibility in autonomous systems. We're losing the narrative, she began. The press is running with the wrong idea. We need a statement, something that defines exactly what Grok is and what it isn't. A professor of military ethics from Georgetown chimed in. The issue is civilian control. People see Musk, and they think unchecked private power being plugged into military operations. We need to explain the oversight structure better. It's in the documentation, Aisha said. But people don't read white papers. They read headlines. Nadia suggested a video release, Elon, face to camera, explaining Grok's purpose, limitations, and governance. Marcus immediately opposed the idea. If he talks now, he makes himself the story. That's what the Pentagon's already worried about. We need the system to speak for itself. Aisha offered a compromise. Let Grok speak. The room quieted. What if we prepare a controlled Q&A session, broadcasted online, with Grok answering public questions? Nothing scripted. Just Grok being Grok, transparent, careful, ethical. Elon raised an eyebrow. You think the public will buy that? No, Aisha said. I think they'll understand it. Which is better? The idea took hold. Within 48 hours, xAI launched the campaign, Ask Grok. Submissions poured in. Thousands of questions from scientists, skeptics, journalists, and ordinary citizens. From, can Grok be hacked, to, would you follow orders that violate international law, to, what's your opinion on whistleblowers? The xAI team selected 12 questions, verified their ethical neutrality, and prepared the environment. Grok would run in a secure offline instance, no pre-programmed answers, no filters. The broadcast was set for Saturday night, prime time. On the day of the stream, Grok's server room was treated like a launch pad. Engineers checked every cable, backup system, and logging mechanism. Aisha stood in the back, hands clenched. Elon watched silently as the countdown began. When the stream went live, millions tuned in. The screen was black for a moment, then lit up with a simple interface. Hello. I am Grok. I am an artificial intelligence system developed by xAI. I am here to answer your questions as transparently and responsibly as I can. Let's begin. The first question, what's your core purpose? Grok responded. To support human decision-making with logic, context, and ethical reflection. My design emphasizes transparency, explainability, and caution in uncertain scenarios. Another, can you be manipulated to justify violence? Any system can be misused. My internal models flag escalation pathways, cross-reference them with international law and ethical guidelines, and alert human supervisors if risk exceeds accepted thresholds. My recommendations are never autonomous. Humans are always in command. Viewers were stunned. Grok spoke plainly. No jargon. No dodging. Just structured, honest explanations. The final question, if you were asked to justify a morally gray operation, what would you do? Grok paused. Then replied. I would assess the legal and ethical frameworks available. If ambiguity remains, I would request additional human judgment and flag the issue for ethical oversight. My role is to assist clarity, not to authorize complexity. By the end of the session, hashtags like #GrokKnows and #AI with a moral code were trending worldwide. More importantly, the tide within the Pentagon began to shift. Colonel Davis forwarded the stream to his superiors. This is what we've been asking for, he wrote. An AI that doesn't pretend to know everything. One that asks questions, not just gives answers. 3 days later, a secure line rang at xAI headquarters. Elon answered. This is Maddox, said the voice on the other end. The DoD is formally inviting xAI to submit Grok defense for the Tier 2 integration pilot. Elon's lips curled into a rare, genuine smile. Good. We're ready. The door wasn't fully open yet. But it was cracked, and that was all xAI needed. Behind the scenes, contracts began to move. Legal teams drafted protocols. Engineers prepared deployment units. Grok was going to war, not with weapons, but with wisdom. And this was only the beginning. Because somewhere, in another building, another project was brewing, one that didn't believe in ethics, only dominance. And it was watching Grok very, very closely. Within hours of the Ask Grok stream ending, the internet exploded. Twitter feeds lit up as clips of Grok's calm, ethical responses went viral. Conservative commentators praised its restraint, progressives credited it for giving AI a conscience. Elon Musk's mention skyrocketed, not for spacecraft, not for electric cars, but for moral AI. The DoD invitation loomed large, but so did public scrutiny. Headlines ranged from Grok, the AI with a moral compass, to billionaires bot or government watchdog. Blogs speculated whether Grok could become Big Brother, others wondered if it was the key to restoring public trust in defense tech. Inside xAI's Palo Alto headquarters, the atmosphere was frenetic. The live stream had passed, but repercussions rippled outward. Hushed conversations echoed through the corridors. Engineers checked logs, PR specialists coordinated with legal, media interviews were scheduled around the clock. Nadia stared at her code terminal, eyes red-ringed from lack of sleep. Marcus double-checked encryption protocols, glossing over every line. Aisha controlled her breathing, a practiced pause weighing each reporter request. Elon sat in his office, beside a steaming mug, blinking slowly. He hadn't slept much either, but he remained uncharacteristically quiet. He didn't need to speak, the world had already heard Grok. By midday, the Pentagon's signal arrived, a secure email, subject line, Tier 2 pilot approval pending CPN 5 to 4621. Aisha squealed involuntarily. Nadia clasped Marcus's arm. Even Elon's eyebrow lifted, just a fraction. It was happening. They were in. But the invitation came with conditions, tighter oversight, staged deployment, frequent audits, and strict data segregation. Essentially, they were telling xAI, we need to trust you, but we'll be watching. Within xAI, that was both a victory and a burden. Elon pivoted quickly, convening the leadership team in the windowless strategy room. On one wall, a whiteboard displayed the Pentagon's conditions. On the other, a timeline of deliverables, infrastructure upgrades, compliance audits, engineering milestones aligned with government requirements. Musk stood before them, voice low and unfiltered, "They want a partner. We've proved Grok can show restraint, clarity, ethics. Now we deliver, and we don't just want to meet their conditions. We want to exceed them. This is xAI's moment. Not just for us, but for public trust in AI." Nadia spoke up. "We need to lock down Chamber C, dedicated servers inside a DoD data center. And I want dual authenticated hardware tokens. No remote access." Marcus nodded. "And we'll embed watchdog scripts into the kernel. Any unexpected behavior triggers a snapshot and alert to our compliance team and DoD auditors." Aisha added, "We should publish a provisional ethics white paper, open source, notarized, international advisory sign-offs." Elon looked at them, "Let's get it done." Yesterday. The weeks that followed were brutal. xAI transformed from a sleek tech startup into a hybrid defense provider. Servers were relocated. Clean room environments established. Constant encryption keys rotated. Every AI output, every system ping, every access log was logged, timestamped, and triple sent to both xAI and DoD archives. Meetings with procurement officers, legal counsel, and technical advisors stretched into late nights. The team flew to Virginia, Texas, Colorado. Grok defense test rigs followed. Meanwhile, Musk spun a careful media narrative. No brash tweets. No midnight live streams. Instead, measured statements, partnering with DoD is a path to ensure safe, transparent, accountable AI. He approved op-eds in tech magazines. He signed a letter to Science Journal pledging no civilian data use, no mission creep. The narrative shifted. Elon and Grok weren't shadow players, they were pioneers in trustworthy AI. But with visibility came attack. Rival contractors, afraid of losing bids, began whisper campaigns. Allegations surfaced, xAI had ties to foreign governments. That Grok logic chains were too slow, maybe too leak-prone. Opponents pounced on the leaked beta code criticisms. Media outlets produced graphics comparing Grok logic diagrams to decision trees from 1970s dystopian films. The hashtag #GrokGate began trending on conservative feeds. That evening, a news program aired a segment titled, "Is Musk's AI Too Dangerous to Flag?" They invited specialists. A former CIA risk assessor, a congressional AI skeptic, a cybersecurity consultant. They reviewed Grok's logic chart, suggested that adversaries might exploit the explanation layer to figure out what Grok knows, and asked whether such a system could become a liability. The screen lingered on Musk's image, determined face, but the tone was alarmed. It was the darkest cloud xAI had yet faced. Elon was watching. The red headline taunted him. He said nothing. But inside, the fire burned. He believed in transparency. He believed in scrutiny. This was exactly what Grok was built for, to shine in sunlight, not hide in darkness. He called an all-hands meeting late that night. In the Stark warehouse, neon lights glowed. Engineers huddled around laptops. Aisha and Nadia sat on benches. Marcus stood, silent. Elon stood at the head, fingers interlocked. He began, slow and firm. "We built Grok to be transparent. If the world tests it, let them. If they poke holes, we patch. If they ask questions, we answer. But we don't hide. We don't pivot. We stand and we fight with data and truth. We go louder. We go clearer." Elon clicked hands. "Tomorrow, we start a full disclosure series. Live-streamed behind-the-scenes sessions showing encryption workflows, data isolation, logic extraction, all public, all verifiable. We're not launching an AI. We're launching trust. He could feel the tension ease. Eyes sharpened. A faint hope bloomed. The next week was a promotional blitz. xAI's YouTube channel released a 3-part behind-the-scenes documentary, Building Grok, Transparency in Action. Engineers demonstrated how Grok's encrypted enclaves worked, how the logic chain viewer connected to base code, how live auditors verified AI recommendations. Viewers could see timestamps, logs, test cases, even callouts to third-party certifiers. Transparency wasn't promised, it was displayed in real time. Public response shifted. View counts skyrocketed. Comments turned from suspicion to admiration. Journalists praised the initiative as unprecedented for a defense contractor. Social media buzzed with soundbites, AI that shows its work, let's see more transparency in tech. Rival contractors went silent, or wrote defenses of their own closed-door processes. Within the Pentagon, the tone changed. Procurement officers whispered support. Several analysts sent encrypted messages. If xAI is doing this, maybe this is the path. The formal Tier 2 integration pilot progressed. Contracts were drafted. Teams were aligned. Engineers briefed military software teams on integration plans. Grok Defense was scheduled for a soft deployment exercise in Aurora Base, Colorado, testing AI assistance during simulated cyber threat scenarios. Still, the world watched. On the eve of the pilot, a late-night hacker collective released a statement claiming they'd found an encryption flaw in Grok's logic export module. They promised proof by morning. Headlines jumped. Elon saw the alert at 2 a.m. He tapped his wrist, an internal message was waiting. No breach detected. False claim or honeypot. Marcus investigating. Nadia reinforcing modules. Monitoring. He breathed out. Good. Morning came. The hacker post was debunked, forensic logs showed it was from a botnet trying to bait a response. xAI countered with speed, a tweet stating, no evidence of leak. We invite audit. Transparency isn't optional. That day, 2 major newspapers printed follow-ups pointing out the smear was false, and praising xAI's swift response. Another win for process-driven transparency. In Washington, the Tier 2 pilot plan crept forward. A congressman from the Oversight Committee quietly praised the move. A senior defense advisor asked the team to present at an upcoming AI Trust Summit. Grok Defense made its quiet debut on cybersecurity drills at Aurora. The logs? Shared with DoD auditors. Engineers huddled in trailers, watching data streams, checking latency, confirming notifications and logic chain prompts performed as expected. Late that night, Elon sat in the trailer, looking at the base layer control terminal. He typed a message to the core team, we're holding the line. You're holding the line. I'm proud. Nadia responded, we wouldn't be anywhere else. Marcus replied, security is holding, integrity intact. Aisha wrote, ethics is unbroken. A tense victory, but a victory nonetheless. xAI wasn't just surviving scrutiny, it was using it to strengthen its foundation. Grok remained safe, explainable, ethical. The $200 million contract wasn't inked yet, but Stage 2 was underway. Musk's gamble on transparency was paying off. Yet whispers began elsewhere. Another AI program within a classified DoD initiative, code-named Project Chimera, was accelerating its own development, less open, more lethal. The race wasn't just xAI versus its competitors. It was transparency versus secrecy, morality versus power. Grok had cleared the first battlefield. The war was far from over. The morning after the successful Aurora pilot, xAI's Palo Alto office hummed with relieved energy. Engineers exchanged smiles. Aisha floated through, her usual concern softened. Even Marcus seemed lighter, his usual guard loosened a touch. Grok had just delivered a near-perfect run in a simulated cyber-espionage attack. Logic chains were airtight, security alerts immediate, and ethical failsafes worked without delay. The Pentagon audit squad had given a nod of approval. This wasn't Silicon Valley hype, it was proof. Elon Musk stood in the central lab, surrounded by screens tracking Grok's health, performance graphs, cyber defense logs, and encrypted advisory transcripts. He allowed himself a rare grin. They were winning trust, one clear demonstration at a time. But beneath the surface calm, tension lay coiled. No Seth consoles hummed louder than whispers of betrayal. Someone inside xAI, or maybe in the Pentagon circle, had access to private audit files. Last night, a complete set of encrypted logic chain logs from Aurora had been leaked to the media. Headlines screamed about Grok secrets and DoD files compromised. That leak could derail everything. Elon walked into the conference room, Aisha and Marcus at his side, with Nadia close behind. Screens lining the room scrolled through redacted news feeds. The leak articles claimed Grok's logic chain revealed potential hidden political biases, based on centuries of data mapping American society. Headlines were unflattering: bias under the guise of ethics, an alarmed tone repeated across platforms. Who did this? Elon asked, voice low but fierce. The team shifted. Guilt, surprise, confusion flickered in their eyes. Marcus spoke first, we're still tracing the source. Could be from within, he tapped the laptop, our internal audit portal, or from one of the Pentagon reviewers with access. He glanced at Aisha. We've begun a forensics log analysis. We'll find the vector. Aisha folded her arms. Public perception is eroding fast. If they think Grok is biased, no transparency campaign will salvage it. Nadia grimaced. The leak includes timestamped logs cross-referencing civilian metadata buckets we never intended to expose. That implies full breach. Her words hung like a confession, but she didn't mean betrayal, she meant the system had been deeper than they declared. Elon's jaw clenched. I need this silent. No tweets. No press statements. We investigate first, then act. But whoever did this, they threatened everything we're building. And they'll answer for it. He looked at each of them. Agreed? Heads nodded. Within hours, xAI's internal security team worked with both DoD cybersecurity units and private forensic experts. Logs were pulled, systems mirrored, trace routes mapped. Meanwhile, PR drafted two possible reactions, one for an insider leak, one if DoD access was exploited. The plan: confirm source, deploy measures, restore trust with transparent report and improve controls. That afternoon, the core meeting reconvened. Marcus presented his findings. The leak originates from a user group token assigned to a DoD liaison, someone on the outside. It wasn't xAI network compromise. He paused. That means our security posture was fine. But we trusted that liaison to keep their logs secure. Nadia looked unsettled. We stored backup copies in our archive, but the leak only shows data from the Pentagon sandbox. So the breach didn't touch xAI. It was external. Elon narrowed his eyes. Why release it now? Aisha, head bowed, answered. Timing is key. It surfaced just before three House committees adjourned debates on AI oversight. It's a smear campaign, engineered to stir controversy at a politically sensitive moment. Silence followed. Elon exhaled. So it's targeted. They want to undermine trust in Grok's government use. They're playing politics. Marcus leaned forward. We can contain it. Release a full forensic report. Show proof we were clean. Offer Pentagon to rotate liaison accounts monthly. Hard limit access. Elon nodded. Yes. And we go one step forward. We invite DoD oversight to test logs, tag metadata, and keep rotating liaisons. We don't just repair, we reinforce. Transparency is our inoculation. Aisha's eyes reflected relief. And we adjust the interface, no metadata beyond defense use, no civilian info in logs. We hard filter anything non-essential. Nadia added, we re-engineer the sandbox's export module so it can't transmit civilians' metadata. Code refresh, deploy pipeline update. Elon stood. Do it. And today, contact Pentagon, present the plan. I'll make a statement, we'll release a joint audit, a co-signed, publicly verifiable report. Tell them, we're committed to trust, and we'll prove it. Within 24 hours, xAI issued a joint news release with DoD auditing offices, titled, Grok Defense Safe, External Leak, No Internal Breach. The statement outlined the source, a user token leak in a Pentagon liaison system, and detailed immediate action, rotating credentials, scrubbing metadata, code interface changes, and joint oversight panels. It was a decisive move, but reaction was mixed. Some praised it, others labeled it damage control. Online debates raged. But the investigation report, the first to include time-stamped cryptographic validation, trace logs, and engineering fixes, was the strongest assurance xAI and the Pentagon had ever published. Marcus and his team monitored sentiment graphs, they spiked positive within hours. Still, the leak had shaken the team. In the quiet hours, after screens dimmed and servers cooled, they gathered again. Elon addressed them softly, you built a remarkable system. And when tested, it held. Trust is not given, it's earned. And tonight, we earned more of it. Nadia's voice cracked. We lost personal trust in someone who had access. But our system did what it was supposed to do. Marcus nodded, we responded, and now we're stronger. Aisha added, ethics require accountability. We've shown accountability. Elon smiled, just a hint, now we move forward. With this behind us, our next engagement is the congressional briefing. They want to see the updated Grok pilot and learn from what happened. It's time to reinforce trust at every level. They prepared for the briefing. Grok defense code was updated, logs taught not to include civilian metadata, liaisons prepared. Aisha led a session with congressional aides, unfiltered, candid, about the leak's cause, the remedial steps, and the assurance frameworks they'd built. When Congress convened, Elon, Nadia, Marcus, and Aisha appeared before the committee, flanked by DoD auditors. Surprise at first, Congress had witnessed coverage of the leak. But as xAI walked through the sequence, from leak detection, forensic tracing, code fixes, updated credentials, metadata filtering, oversight rotations, they saw a system not collapsing under scrutiny, but evolving with it. When asked, Nadia said, this was a stress test. Now our system is safer and more robust because of it. Aisha added, trustworthy AI isn't built in a vacuum, it requires real-world tests and transparency. Marcus chimed, security is a process. You can't lock a door and walk away, you have to test it, monitor it, refresh it. A hush fell. The committee chair cleared her throat. xAI, you've not only addressed the leak, you've improved your system under congressional scrutiny. Thank you. A nod followed, unprecedented appreciation. For Elon, the moment was bigger than a Pentagon contract. This was AI governance, proactive, transparent, autonomous, designed to involve humans across levels, not bypass them. Back in the lab, the team broke down mentally and physically, exhausted but bonded. They shelled out celebratory coffees in the cafeteria. The leak left scars, but they also forged unity. They'd faced internal breach risk, multi-layer scrutiny, politics, and engineered resilience in response, they hadn't faltered. That night, xAI's servers processed Grok simulations on weather disasters, epidemics, economic crises, civil-scale applications not tied to Pentagon, but under the new, hardened framework. Irony burned, a defense AI helping humanity at scale. Elon watched. He typed on a message board, "We build AI that stands in scrutiny because we want it to stand in trust." That's your work. Thank you. No fanfare. Just truth. The aftermath of the breach was still pulsing through xAI's veins when the team gathered in their war room-style conference suite, cables snaked across glass tables, screens flickering with code and live system metrics. Grok Defense version 2.0 was online, tested, hardened, scrubbed of civilian metadata, sandboxed tighter than a vault. But trust wasn't given, it was earned. And that meant proving Grok could adapt not just to ethical scrutiny, but strategic scrutiny. Elon sat at the head of the table, arms crossed, eyes steady. Nadia Sanchez, Marcus Cole, and Dr. Aisha Rivera lined the opposite side, each carrying the weight of their expertise and the burden of the mission. Elon began without preamble, "We've battled PR leaks, penetration tests, congressional oversight, and public doubt. We held." He paused, voice low. "But now we need proactive innovation. We need a pivot that not only defends, but delivers, something the DoD can't ignore." Nadia leaned forward, fingers tapping a polished tabletop. "We pivot to resilience learning. Instead of just analyzing data, Grok needs to learn from live adversarial environments, simulate active cyber assaults, radio jamming, misinformation ploys, and adapt its logic chain in real time." Marcus nodded. "Agreed. And we need dynamic audit trails, live snapshots of reasoning under pressure, with contextual flags and rollback capability." Aisha interjected, "Make sure every adaptive step is annotated ethically. If Grok prioritizes mission success over collateral risk metrics, we have to see that log and explain it." Elon stared at the trio. "In other words, integrate live adversarial training, real-time explanation under chaos, and preservation of human dialogue triggers?" Nadia nodded. "Yes, imagine Grok running live vulnerability scans during a simulated cyber conflict, recalibrating its threat model with each payload, and explaining, flagging this exploit, here's why. Then if we choose not to patch immediately for strategic reasons, Grok logs the rationale in accessible, ethically annotated transcripts." The team exchanged looks. This was ambitious. But it was also what they'd been preparing for, a Grok that didn't just think, it reasoned under fire. Elon tapped his fingers thoughtfully. "We pitched this for the Tier 3 pilot, a live resilience exercise at Aurora Base, extended into cyber war games. We show not just trust, but capability. We show evolution." Marcus clicked open a project management board. "We'll need new infrastructure. Isolated test nets within DoD, secure code pathways, external audit agents watching in real time. And we need a resilience sandbox for external hackathons. Invite credentialed red teams to throw everything at Grok." Aisha added, "We also need ethical monitors embedded in those hackathons. If hackers provoke dynamic risk decisions, e.g. withholding a patch to bait Grok into mission calculus, we need transcripts, disclaimers, and ethics score overlays." Elon nodded approvingly. "Okay. Nadia, design the sandbox architecture. Marcus, lead the security and resilience modules. Aisha, map the ethics documentation framework. Launch in 2 weeks, pilot in 1 month." The plan was bold, but it galvanized the team. Over the next days, xAI's facility transformed. A wing was walled off and dubbed Hub C, Resilience Chamber. Inside, server racks hummed behind bulletproof glass. Analysts monitored code streams as simulated cyber assaults fired packets. The screen streamed logic chain evolution, conditional paths updating, confidence percentage shifts, ethics annotations lighting up issues as Grok re-evaluated storm drifting compromises and real-time moral dilemmas. The atmosphere crackled. Nadia wandered the chamber with a tablet, watching Grok adjust its models midstream. She caught Elon's eye and smiled. "See how it adapts to packet flooding, not just flagging anomalies, but explaining them and even suggesting mitigation approaches while noting risk side effects. Elon nodded. Beautiful. Marcus hovered at a console, half-whispering commands into his headset as external red teamers probed the system. Firewalls shifted in response, logs streamed to both xAI and DoD endpoints. Aisha joined them, scanning a real-time ethics panel. Grok is escalating flagged risk from 0.03 to 0.12 based on packet analysis, but also shows why it didn't block automatically, it needs human input. That's good. Marcus shot her a look. That annotation will sell this pilot. Meanwhile, code teams worked through the night, checking latency, pushing security patches live, rotating encryption keys in cascading layers, and preparing the final report packet. Outside the chamber, engineers held stand-ups at midnight. They spoke in shorthand, logic chain stability, confidence regression, annotated rollback triggers, but there was energy in their tone, camaraderie born of purpose. 2 weeks later, xAI submitted the full proposal for the Tier 3 resilience pilot, including architecture diagrams, red team plans, audit protocols, and ethics annotated case studies. They asked for a field test, live simulate cyber warfare at Aurora base meters from actual DoD cyber range networks. The response was near instantaneous, the DoD signals were green. Congress had already earmarked additional funding for AI resilience pilots. The threat environment was too dangerous not to explore defensive AI that could explain its reasoning. xAI's submission was approved. Weeks later, the team convened in Aurora Base's clean lab. The equipment was ruggedized, engineers struggled with humid air, ID badges, and military red tape. The chamber had been replicated, servers locked in steel racks, screens mounted behind bulletproof glass, network taps streaming into DoD systems. Grok Defense version 3.1 booted up. The red teams from NSA-affiliated labs streamed in. The simulations began with a controlled feed, a database of benign cyber traffic. Then came the probes, packets with malformed headers, phishing payloads, neural network misdirection attacks, spoofed intel misclassification threats. Grok processed each. It logged anomalies, it populated logic chains, flagged confidence levels, proposed fixes, noted side effects, paused for human input, emitted ethical scorecards. The red teams escalated. They unleashed ransomware strain mockups, triggered false positive attack alarms, tried to bait Grok into activating fail-safe counters over civilian sensor data systems. Grok responded. It quarantined packets but logged its rationale, mitigated packet flood due to anomalies in traffic entropy. Human oversight recommended before defensive counterprobes. A hush fell in the sterile lab. The senior DoD official observing told Nadia quietly, "This is the kind of control we need." Elon watched from behind the pane, arms folded. This was it. After several hours, Grok had weathered dozens of simulated assault types, each time dynamically adapting while maintaining ethical transparency. It had made errors, false negatives on obscure zero-day patterns, but flagged low confidence and recommended human review. It had made decisions to delay retaliatory simulations until human approval. The red teams tried to break it by feeding it realistic domestic social network data combined with military threat keywords, but Grok filtered civilian metadata and asked for ethical permission. In the clean log reports, engineers documented each step, annotated each decision with timestamps, red team signatures, ethical commentary, and even public key signed log chains. When the simulation concluded, a hush reverberated. Senior DoD advisors conferred via headsets. Then one nodded and whispered to the general behind him. The general, an imposing woman with ice-gray hair, stepped forward. "Elon Musk," she said, voice cold but impressed, "you've built something impressive. Not perfect, but capable, transparent, ethical under duress. We'll move to deployment planning." She paused. "But more importantly, we need your ethics board to advise on operational use cases." Because no AI tool that moves this fast should be deployed without moral oversight. Elon looked across the lab to Nadia, who met his gaze with pride, and then to Marcus, silent, secure, watchful. Then to Aisha, who nodded once and closed her notebook. He stepped forward. We stand ready. Grok stands ready. In that moment, Grok was no longer just an assistant. It was a partner that learned, adapted, explained, and protected, not just data, but human trust. The turning point was real. The strategy was working. Humanity was listening. And the next chapter, the congressional public test, the $200 million contract, the final ethical directive, was coming. The morning sun filtered through tall, leaded windows of the Longworth House office building as xAI's team set up in room 1324 for their congressional briefing. It was eerily quiet compared to the chaos of Aurora Base. No hum of servers, no flashing commands. Just polished wooden panels, microphones, and the gaze of legislators who held the authority of billions in funding. Nadia Sanchez checked the AV feed one last time, Marcus Cole tapped his pen against legal paths, and Dr. Aisha Rivera reviewed bullet points in her mind as Elon Musk paced behind a lectern. Cameras were rolling. The story they'd been building since that Pentagon push, the resilience test, and the public vetting, they all led to this moment. With him were Nadia, Marcus, and Aisha, each a cornerstone of xAI's mission. Elon began, voice measured yet forceful, "Thank you, Representative Torres, members of the committee. I'm here to introduce Grok Defense V4, a system built not for autonomy, but for assistance, not for secrecy, but for transparency, not for dominance, but for defense." He paused. In Aurora, Grok demonstrated dynamic reasoning under live cyber duress. It exposed logic chains, flagged confidences, and submitted ethical queries when faced with uncertain scenarios. This isn't theory. It's real-world performance with meaningful transparency. He gestured to Nadia, who stepped forward. Under fluorescent lights, she laid out the technical architecture, secure enclaves, rotating authentication, air-gapped backups, ethics annotations embedded in logic chain matrices. The room sat in respectful silence, even aides at the back row hunched forward. A congressman spoke first, "Ms. Sanchez, can you explain how Grok adapts logic chains in real time?" Nadia tapped the screen. Yes. Grok has two simultaneous reasoning threads, a primary reasoning path for rapid threat analysis, and a secondary audit path that monitors logic integrity and flags deviations. In simulation, if an adversarial code snippet triggers anomalous classifier behavior, Grok alerts human supervisors, references the audit path, and offers a recommended action plus confidence score, all within seconds. She clicked a diagram, arrows and nodes pulsed behind her. Every action is logged, timestamped, and linked to the original data inputs. And if Grok's confidence falls below 50%, it automatically inserts an ethical pause, meaning human review becomes mandatory. Questions shifted to Marcus. "Mr. Cole, how secure is the system? Could an adversary inject malicious code into logic exports?" Marcus raised his pen. Grok Defense uses multilayered encryption with dual domain separation. All exports require cryptographic proofs from both xAI and DoD key servers. We run continuous monitoring for signature mismatches. So a foreign actor would have to bypass two independent key authorities, plus real-time audit agents. And those agents have freeze-overwrite capabilities, meaning, if an unauthorized export is attempted, the system locks and reports immediately. He looked toward rows of listeners. That's not theoretical, we've stress-tested under red team assault. Not just simulated threats, but insider threat patterns, co-resident VM breaches, even hardware-level injection attempts. He tapped his foot against the floor. No breaches occurred. When the technical Q&A concluded, Aisha took the floor. "I'd like to speak to Grok's ethical framework. AIs often act too quickly, but Grok is designed to reason slowly when any ambiguity is detected. If it identifies conflicting legal or moral frameworks, it pauses and flags the question for human input. We've built-in pause for clarity layers. This isn't an intelligent tool that jumps to conclusions, it's an intelligent assistant that knows when it doesn't know. She scrolled through a sanitized logic chain excerpt. In one cyber misinformation test, Grok routed its recommendation into a joint civilian-military review protocol, because it recognized the risk of false attribution. That's not aggression. That's responsibility. A hush fell across the room. Elon returned to center stage. We're asking not just for funding, but for partnership. Let xAI and DoD co-govern Grok. Let Congress guide it. Let us publish an annual accountability report. With logs of pushback, confidence misses, ethical query counts. Let this be a precedent model for trustworthy AI in defense. A congresswoman leaned forward. Mr. Musk, many fear AI in national security becomes an opaque black box. Will Grok always produce a human-readable chain of command? Elon nodded. Yes, every recommendation includes a logic export readable by accredited human auditors. One of our core tenets is, no black boxes in the command chain. Another asked about civilian oversight. Aisha responded, we propose an external ethics commission, civil liberties advocates, retired military leaders, independent technologists, who will annually review Grok's logs, flag anomalies, and publish findings to a transparent portal. The room murmured approval. Elon closed, Grok isn't about bypassing humanity, it's about supporting it, ensuring human judgment remains central. And yes, while Grok learns in real time under pressure, those updates are paused until verified by both xAI and DoD before rollout. We're not letting it fly blind. As he stepped back, cameras clicked, and lawmakers whispered. The committee chair, a veteran of oversight hearings, looked at her staff and murmured, impressive combination of capability and institutional control. After final statements, the team exited to hallways lined with flags and framed portraits. Media swarmed. Elon didn't speak yet, Nadia deflected, Marcus waved, Aisha simply smiled. They retreated to a quiet room where laptops were open and messages quivered in chat windows. The signals were positive. The chair's office texted directly, committee impressed. Asking for framework agreement within 2 weeks. Scheduling for final vote. Elon exhaled. A heavy weight lifted. Outside, the Washington sun shone steady, but inside the building, a new weather front had passed. xAI had moved from technical demonstration to institutional credibility. But Elon knew the real test was just ahead, authorized deployment, field performance under real-world operations, and the final Pentagon contract paperwork. Still, for 20 minutes, as they regrouped, the team shared a silent moment of triumph. They'd gone to the Hill, and they'd been heard. After the congressional green light, the mood inside xAI's headquarters shifted from cautious optimism to intense preparation. The $200 million Pentagon contract wasn't just a funding milestone, it was a call to scale Grok defense from lab prototype to operational asset. Elon Musk, Nadia Sanchez, Marcus Cole, and Dr. Aisha Rivera found themselves navigating the uneasy boundary between technological ambition and military realities. The team set up their new command center inside a secure wing of the Pentagon, a place where innovation met bureaucracy. Massive monitors displayed Grok's live analytics streams, secure lines connected to cyber operators scattered across military bases. Grok's logic chains pulsed in real time, parsing data from classified networks, processing cyber threats, and feeding actionable intelligence to human analysts. But despite the adrenaline, a lingering question shadowed the effort: could Grok's ethics framework withstand the chaotic fog of war? Elon convened the core team late one evening. We've built Grok to reason, explain, and ask for human input. But what happens when human input is delayed, or overridden by urgency? What happens when the ethical pause becomes a liability? Nadia adjusted her glasses thoughtfully. Our tests assumed cooperation and clarity, but field operations are messy, conflicting priorities, imperfect intel, political pressures. We need to anticipate those realities. Marcus frowned. Plus, adversaries are evolving fast. They're using AI-driven deception, false flags, deep fakes, misinformation, to confuse human overseers. Grok's logic chains might be forced to make decisions with incomplete or manipulated data. Aisha's voice was steady but grave. That's why our Human Ethics Commission suggested embedding override fail-safes that not only log human interventions but require justification before critical countermeasures activate. Transparency isn't just about AI decisions, it's about how humans exercise command. Elon leaned forward. So it's a double-lock system. AI reasons and flags, humans authorize, but humans must also be accountable. If someone pushes the button ignoring ethical warnings, that's on them, recorded in logs. Nadia nodded. Exactly. But implementing this at scale across multiple military branches, each with different cultures and protocols, will be a massive coordination challenge. The next months were a whirlwind. xAI's engineers, ethicists, and security analysts worked shoulder to shoulder with Pentagon cyber operators, war game planners, and legal advisors. They built command interfaces that layered Grok's logic chain outputs with human decision points. Operators could see why Grok recommended a course, but also had to provide digital signatures with ethical reasoning whenever overriding Grok's suggestions. Training simulators drilled these protocols into soldiers and analysts. Yet the fog of real-world deployment quickly tested every assumption. In the first weeks of live operation, Grok flagged an incoming cyber attack targeting satellite communication uplinks, potentially crippling troop coordination. It recommended immediate countermeasures, but operators hesitated, citing incomplete data and ongoing diplomatic talks with allied nations in the region. The ethical pause extended beyond Grok's logic, as human command debated. Meanwhile, adversaries launched a misinformation campaign, spoofing military network activity, trying to trick Grok into misallocating resources. Grok adjusted logic chains dynamically, escalating confidence thresholds and pushing updates to operators, but the human delays allowed damage to cascade. Elon reviewed the incident report with Nadia and Marcus. We underestimated the pressure on human decision latency. Grok's ethical queries slowed response times. Marcus tapped the page. But human overrides without justification were flagged properly. Operators logged rationale, and the system recorded everything. We have forensic evidence. Nadia's eyes darkened. We have data, yes. But in moments like this, the chain of command is a tangled mess. Morale, politics, fear, none of that fits into neat logic chains. Meanwhile, Aisha's team worked on bolstering the ethics module, embedding contextual awareness of operational tempo, adding risk-tolerance scaling tied to mission urgency. They ran simulations where Grok could autonomously elevate threat levels during delays but still required human sign-off for lethal countermeasures. As weeks unfolded, Grok helped prevent multiple cyber incursions and coordinated complex threat responses, earning respect across the Pentagon cyber community. Yet quiet debates simmered in closed-door meetings. Some officers feared over-reliance on AI might erode human judgment, while others welcomed Grok as an indispensable force multiplier. Public opinion remained divided. Media outlets debated AI ethics in national defense. Civil liberties groups pressed for even stronger external oversight. Meanwhile, Elon spent restless nights considering the balance of power between AI and human agency. One evening, he spoke quietly to Nadia. If Grok can explain every decision, yet humans still override ethical flags for expediency, are we truly controlling the AI, or are we just shifting responsibility? Nadia replied, responsibility can't be outsourced, Elon. The AI is a tool. We need to build cultures where ethical accountability is demanded at every level. In the Pentagon, Grok's team prepared for the next major milestone, the integration of Grok's logic chain outputs into battlefield command centers overseas. This would mark the first time Grok's reasoning influenced live troop deployments and defensive measures in active theaters. Stakes had never been higher. The success or failure of that deployment would shape not only xAI's future but the role of AI in national security for decades. Elon stared at a live map of deployments. Every blinking dot represented decisions, algorithms and humans intertwined, hopes balanced against dangers. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear: trust was fragile, ethics essential, and the human heart the final frontier of AI's promise. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough? The sun burned down on the sprawling desert base in the southwest, where sandstorms could whip up with little warning and the air held the sharp scent of ozone and diesel. This was the proving ground for Grok Defense's first overseas field integration, a remote outpost wired with the latest secure communication tech, connected to frontline command centers. It was here that Grok's logic chains would influence real-time defense decisions, marking the transition from laboratory simulation to live battlefield operations. Elon Musk arrived at the base under a cloudless sky, accompanied by Nadia Sanchez, Marcus Cole, and Dr. Aisha Rivera. The team was met by Lieutenant Colonel James Hawthorne, the grizzled commander tasked with overseeing the test deployment. The base was humming with activity, soldiers prepping vehicles, cyber operators monitoring network feeds, and engineers calibrating equipment. Inside the command bunker, massive screens displayed an evolving digital battlefield, with satellite feeds, cyber threat maps, and Grok's decision dashboards glowing in neon blues and reds. Elon moved to the main console. "This is it," he said softly. "Our first real test." Nadia scanned the metrics. Systems are running with low latency, encrypted feeds are stable, and Grok's reasoning modules are active. "We're ready." Marcus added, "We've also embedded failsafes to freeze automated responses if confidence drops below thresholds or if ethical flags arise." Aisha's voice was steady but carried a weight of anticipation. "Remember, every override by the command must be logged with justification. This test will put our ethical protocols under real pressure." Lieutenant Colonel Hawthorne nodded. "We're running this exercise to simulate an emerging cyber-physical threat, simultaneous cyber attacks targeting comms satellites and coordinated misinformation aimed at troops' morale." The team took their stations as the simulation launched. Data flooded in as Grok analyzed multiple threat vectors, parsing packets, correlating events, and calculating risk probabilities. A cyber attack triggered an alert, a complex ransomware strain attempting to infiltrate supply chain communications. Grok recommended quarantining the compromised nodes immediately but paused before activating full countermeasures, citing a potential conflict with ongoing diplomatic signals. Human operators debated but ultimately approved partial containment with human oversight. Minutes later, misinformation campaigns surfaced, including fake broadcast transmissions aimed at sowing distrust among deployed troops. Grok flagged these as high-risk cognitive attacks and proposed counter-disinformation protocols that included encrypted communication channels and morale-boosting automated alerts. Again, operators held the reins but increasingly relied on Grok's detailed explanations and confidence scoring to guide decisions. Elon observed the team closely. He noticed tension in the room as Grok's alerts intensified. The system flagged an unexpected anomaly. Some sensor data appeared manipulated, possibly the adversary's attempt to feed false positives. Grok proposed a counterintelligence sweep, but the confidence level hovered at 52%, on the edge of the ethical pause threshold. Aisha's eyes fixed on the data streams. "We're asking the humans to decide in an ambiguous zone." Nadia nodded. "The operators need to balance risk versus mission priority, but we must avoid reactive errors." Suddenly, a message arrived from field units reporting communications blackout in a forward supply convoy, potentially due to electronic jamming combined with cyber interference. Grok recalibrated its logic chains, raising confidence in a coordinated attack scenario. It suggested prioritizing the convoy's location for defensive countermeasures but awaited human approval for active electronic countermeasures that could impact civilian systems nearby. Lieutenant Colonel Hawthorne faced a dilemma. Immediate action could save lives but risk collateral damage. After tense consultation, he authorized a targeted electronic countermeasure, documenting his rationale extensively in the command logs. Grok executed the operation, and the convoy's communication was restored. The operators noted the successful integration of AI recommendation and human judgment. Elon allowed himself a rare smile. But the test wasn't over. As night fell, a new wave of cyber and misinformation assaults hit the base simultaneously. Grok's logic chains scrambled to keep pace, dynamically updating threat models and rerouting countermeasures while continually annotating ethical decision points. Throughout the long night, the team maintained vigilance, balancing machine recommendations with human oversight. By dawn, Grok had prevented multiple incursions, sustained minimal collateral effects, and maintained transparent audit logs. The base commander called Elon aside. "Your system performed beyond expectations. But we've seen the edge cases, moments where human hesitation was both a strength and a risk." Elon nodded thoughtfully. "That's the reality of integrating AI into defense. Trust is built not just on technology, but on people." Back at xAI's Pentagon Command Center, the after-action reports poured in. Analysts praised Grok's adaptive resilience and ethical transparency, but flagged challenges in operational latency and human override friction. The team dove into refining user interfaces, improving decision support tools, and enhancing real-time communication protocols. Meanwhile, internal debates continued over expanding Grok's autonomy versus preserving human primacy. Public scrutiny intensified as news outlets reported on Grok's first field deployment, sparking dialogues on AI in war zones, accountability, and future risks. Elon addressed a press briefing, emphasizing Grok's transparent design and human-in-the-loop philosophy, while pledging continued oversight and ethical rigor. The first field test marked a pivotal moment, a demonstration of AI's potential to enhance defense without sacrificing humanity's ethical compass. But it also underscored the complex balancing act ahead. As Elon and his team prepared for broader deployments, the world watched closely, aware that the dawn of AI-powered defense was no longer theoretical, it was here, complex, powerful, and fraught with both promise and peril. Weeks after the successful desert deployment, an unexpected crisis rocked xAI's operations. Late one evening, Nadia Sanchez was reviewing Grok's encrypted audit logs when she noticed anomalies. Logic chain exports were accessed from a secure terminal during off-hours, bypassing standard authentication protocols. At first, it looked like a system glitch, but as she dug deeper, patterns emerged suggesting unauthorized internal access. Her pulse quickened. Could someone inside be compromising Grok's transparency? Nadia immediately alerted Marcus Cole and Dr. Aisha Rivera. Marcus ran trace routes through the cybersecurity infrastructure. "This isn't just an external hack," he said grimly. "Someone with valid credentials is manipulating audit data. They're deleting entries, altering logs, masking overrides." Aisha's eyes narrowed. "This threatens the entire ethical framework. If logs can be tampered with, then accountability collapses." Elon was briefed immediately. The gravity of the situation was clear, an insider threat could unravel public trust and jeopardize the Pentagon contract. Elon convened an emergency meeting with xAI's leadership and Pentagon liaisons. The room was tense. "We built Grok to be transparent and accountable," Elon said. "But if our own house is breached, that undermines everything." The Pentagon's Cyber Command agreed to conduct a parallel forensic investigation. Days of scrutiny followed. Digital footprints pointed to a mid-level engineer with deep system access, someone trusted but ideologically conflicted. Surveillance and interviews revealed the engineer had been quietly skeptical about Grok's integration into military operations, fearing escalation and loss of human oversight. They'd tried to slow development by altering audit trails, hoping to delay deployment. Confronted with evidence, the engineer confessed, expressing regret but standing by concerns about AI's unchecked power in defense. Elon wrestled with a paradox: how to balance innovation with internal dissent. The breach forced xAI to institute stricter access controls, multi-factor authorization for log exports, and real-time tamper detection with automatic lockdowns. The Ethics Commission was expanded to include internal watchdogs empowered to audit live system activity. Publicly, xAI and the Pentagon issued a joint statement affirming the commitment to transparency and accountability, acknowledging the insider incident but emphasizing swift action and reinforced safeguards. Meanwhile, the team grappled with the human dimension. Nadia felt shaken, trust was foundational, and betrayal stung deeply. Marcus focused on technical defenses but understood that culture mattered as much as code. Aisha pushed for stronger ethical training and open forums where staff could voice concerns without fear. Elon called a company-wide meeting. We cannot build a future where fear or silence undermine our mission. Transparency isn't just about logs, it's about culture, courage, and shared responsibility. Grok's power depends on our integrity. The crisis deepened the team's resolve. It exposed vulnerabilities not just in technology but in human systems. As Grok moved toward wider operational roles, xAI embraced a new era of openness, radical transparency with internal checks, external oversight, and an unwavering commitment to ethical AI. The insider threat became a catalyst for growth, a painful but necessary reckoning. The story of Grok was no longer just about AI's capabilities but about the fragile, complex interplay of technology, ethics, and human trust at the heart of national security. Elon mused privately, in the war for truth, sometimes the fiercest battles are fought within. Following the insider threat incident, the spotlight on xAI and Grok intensified beyond technical audits to a broader ethical battleground. The Pentagon's newly formed Ethics Commission convened its first public session to examine Grok's integration into national defense. The commission was an unprecedented mix of retired military officers, civil rights advocates, AI ethicists, and independent technologists, assembled to ensure Grok adhered to strict moral and legal frameworks. The day was hot and humid in Washington, D.C., and the hearing room was packed with journalists, government officials, and public interest groups. Elon Musk sat quietly in the front row, flanked by Nadia Sanchez, Marcus Cole, and Dr. Aisha Rivera. The commission chair, a dignified former general named Margaret Ellison, opened the session. Our mission is clear: to balance innovation with accountability, and security with the rule of law. The first presenter was a civil liberties attorney who raised concerns about AI's role in lethal decision-making and the potential erosion of privacy rights. Grok's transparency mechanisms are commendable, she acknowledged, but can they truly prevent misuse? How do we ensure AI systems do not become tools of unchecked surveillance or preemptive aggression? Aisha took the podium next. Her voice was calm but passionate. Grok is designed not to replace human judgment but to augment it. Ethical pauses require human sign-off, and every override is logged and reviewed. We have built-in safeguards against autonomous lethal action without explicit command. The conversation turned to the role of external audits. Marcus explained the layered security protocols and continuous monitoring designed to detect tampering or misuse in real time. Still, critics challenged whether institutional oversight alone was sufficient, urging for citizen representation on the commission. Nadia responded, transparency requires trust, and trust is earned through openness and inclusion. That's why our plan includes annual public reports with declassified summaries accessible to the general public. Questions arose about Grok's ability to handle ambiguous moral dilemmas, situations where laws conflict or operational priorities clash with ethical imperatives. Elon leaned forward, emphasizing a key point: we acknowledge the limits of any AI system. Grok flags uncertainty, defers to human judgment, and documents every decision path. But ultimately, ethics is a human domain. Grok's role is to provide clarity, not command. Heated exchanges followed. Some commissioners worried that AI's involvement, even with safeguards, might normalize an incremental erosion of accountability, what one called a slippery slope toward delegating critical moral choices to machines. Others argued that Grok's transparency and ethical logging represented a vital evolution, potentially preventing the very abuses that opaque human hierarchies had allowed in the past. The debate revealed deep tensions. National security demands rapid, decisive action, but ethical governance requires deliberation and restraint. Balancing these forces was no small task. Elon's team presented case studies from the desert deployment and simulated conflict zones, demonstrating Grok's nuanced decision-making, the frequency and nature of ethical pauses, and the efficacy of human override protocols. The Commission requested more data on false positive rates, override justifications, and incident follow-ups. Behind the scenes, Aisha met with civil rights advocates to discuss ways to strengthen community engagement and build broader consensus on AI ethics. Nadia coordinated technical teams to prepare for the next round of audits, refining interfaces to make ethical queries more transparent and understandable. Marcus worked with Pentagon Cyber Defense to tighten security and improve tamper detection algorithms. As the session adjourned, Chair Ellison offered a cautious but hopeful summary. Grok represents a new frontier in AI for defense, one that demands vigilance, accountability, and humility. Our job is to ensure that innovation never outpaces our moral compass. Elon reflected on the day's discourse. The ethical challenges were as complex as the technical ones. Yet, the Commission's existence itself was a breakthrough, an institutional acknowledgement that AI in defense must be governed openly, with diverse voices at the table. That night, Elon messaged Nadia, "Transparency is our greatest strength and our biggest vulnerability. We're building not just a system, but a precedent." Nadia replied, "And every precedent requires courage to uphold." The Ethics Commission debate was only the beginning, a continuous dialogue shaping the evolving relationship between AI, humanity, and the future of war. News of xAI's Grok deployment and the Pentagon contract quickly transcended American borders, stirring ripples across the global geopolitical landscape. In capitals from London to Beijing, Berlin to Tel Aviv, defense analysts, intelligence agencies, and AI research centers took note with a mix of curiosity, admiration, and concern. As Elon Musk and the xAI team navigated the challenges of scaling Grok domestically, international actors were formulating their responses, some aiming to collaborate, others to compete, and many cautiously watching the ethical debates unfolding in Washington. At NATO headquarters in Brussels, a special summit convened to discuss the strategic implications of AI-powered defense systems. Representatives from member nations debated how to align policies, share intelligence, and ensure interoperability while safeguarding against escalation. Ambassador Claire Donovan from the U.S. delegation emphasized transparency and ethical frameworks. Grok represents a paradigm shift in how we approach cyber defense and battlefield decision-making. But our commitment to allied oversight and shared values must guide its integration. European defense ministers expressed concerns about autonomy in lethal systems and the potential for AI arms races. Germany's defense minister stressed the need for international treaties addressing AI weaponization. Meanwhile, in Moscow, Russian military analysts issued statements acknowledging the transformative potential of AI but condemning what they framed as American attempts to monopolize strategic advantage. Behind closed doors, Russia accelerated its own AI defense projects, prioritizing offensive cyber capabilities and exploring autonomous drone swarms. In Beijing, AI research labs buzzed with renewed urgency. Chinese government officials flagged Grok as a national security priority, convening a high-level committee to oversee AI military modernization. Chinese scientists debated how to balance rapid innovation with ethical considerations, drawing lessons from xAI's transparency model but wary of Western-style public scrutiny. Amidst the geopolitical jockeying, a quieter but vital dialogue emerged among AI ethicists and policy experts worldwide. International forums hosted virtual panels discussing principles for responsible AI in defense, emphasizing transparency, human control, accountability, and cross-border cooperation. Elon participated in one such global symposium via video link. He underscored the importance of open dialogue and collective governance to avoid destabilizing arms races. No single nation can navigate this frontier alone, he said. We need shared norms, mutual trust, and mechanisms for verification. Back in the US, xAI's international relations team worked to build partnerships with allied governments, offering pilot programs to adapt Grok for joint operations and intelligence sharing. Nadia led technical delegations abroad, collaborating with foreign cyber units to test interoperability and ethical protocols. Yet, challenges mounted. Divergent legal systems, cultural attitudes toward AI, and political tensions complicated efforts to harmonize standards. Some allies pushed for tighter restrictions, others advocated for accelerated adoption. The media worldwide followed the story with a mix of admiration and skepticism. Some hailed Grok as a beacon of transparent AI in warfare. Others warned of an impending AI arms race with unpredictable consequences. Civil society groups across continents demanded inclusive debates on AI's role in peace and conflict. The international ripple underscored that AI's impact on defense was not merely a national issue but a global one. Elon reflected privately, the promise of Grok lay in its ethical transparency, but the future depended on global collaboration and shared responsibility. As the world grappled with the dawn of AI-powered defense, one truth was clear: the choices made today would shape the security and morality of tomorrow's wars. The story of Grok had become a story of the world itself, interconnected, complex, and at a crossroads. As Grok's deployment expanded, public scrutiny grew louder and more polarized. Headlines splashed warnings of AI in control of war and the new face of automated warfare. Social media exploded with heated debates, activists organized protests, and a rising tide of skepticism challenged xAI's narrative. Elon Musk found himself navigating a new kind of battlefield, one where public trust was as vital as technological precision. The backlash began quietly, with op-eds questioning the ethics of AI-assisted defense and whether Grok's transparency was enough to prevent misuse. Then, a whistleblower from within xAI leaked internal emails discussing classified scenarios where Grok recommended preemptive strikes, igniting a firestorm of controversy. Media outlets demanded accountability, politicians called for hearings, advocacy groups called for moratoriums on AI military use. At a packed town hall in San Francisco, Nadia Sanchez addressed a crowd of concerned citizens. "We hear your fears. Grok is designed with rigorous ethical controls, human oversight, and continuous transparency," she said, voice steady but empathetic. "Our goal is to protect lives while respecting moral boundaries." But many were unconvinced. A local activist challenged, "How can we trust a system controlled by a private company with military power? What about unintended consequences and errors?" Marcus Cole faced technical questions about fail-safes and error margins, explaining how Grok's architecture prioritized human intervention at every critical step. Yet, deep mistrust lingered, fueled by sensational headlines and fears of opaque decision-making. The Pentagon also felt the pressure. Senior officials held emergency briefings to assess Grok's impact on public confidence and national security. They emphasized transparency initiatives, including releasing unclassified summaries of Grok's mission logs and establishing independent oversight boards with civilian representation. Elon engaged directly, participating in televised debates and writing op-eds calling for informed, nuanced discourse. "AI is neither inherently good nor evil," he said. "It reflects the values and oversight we build into it. Grok's success depends on collective vigilance." Meanwhile, internal morale at xAI wavered. Staff who had poured their passion into Grok grappled with public vilification and the weight of responsibility. Aisha Rivera organized internal workshops on ethics and communication, aiming to equip teams to engage with critics constructively. The company also launched an open platform where the public could submit questions, review declassified reports, and participate in discussions about Grok's ongoing development. Slowly, dialogues emerged, not just between xAI and critics, but within communities about the broader implications of AI in warfare, privacy, and governance. The backlash, painful as it was, became a catalyst for deeper transparency and collaboration. Elon mused privately, "Trust isn't given, it's earned through honesty, accountability, and listening, even when it's hard." As Grok's story unfolded, it became clear that technology alone could not shape the future of AI in defense, only human values, dialogue, and courage could do that. The public backlash was not a setback but a turning point, one that would define the ethical horizon of AI-powered war for generations to come. The nation's capital was buzzing with heightened anticipation as Congress prepared to hold a landmark hearing on AI's role in national defense, with a specific focus on Grok and xAI's Pentagon contract. The hearing was to be one of the most consequential moments in the public and political scrutiny of AI-powered military technology, a crossroads where lawmakers, technologists, ethicists, and military officials would clash and converge. The hearing hall was packed to capacity. Reporters, lobbyists, activists, and government officials filled the seats, cameras were set up to broadcast live nationwide, and the air was thick with tension and expectation. At the front, the Congressional Defense Committee Chair, Senator Karen Mitchell, called the session to order. Elon Musk, Nadia Sanchez, Marcus Cole, Dr. Aisha Rivera, and Lieutenant Colonel James Hawthorne were among the invited witnesses prepared to answer questions. Senator Mitchell began with a firm tone, "Today, we confront the realities of integrating AI systems like Grok into our national defense. The American people deserve transparency, accountability, and above all, assurance that human judgment remains paramount in decisions of life and death." The first wave of questioning targeted technical safeguards. Senator Jason Caldwell pressed Marcus Cole on Grok's fail-safe mechanisms, asking how often the AI's recommendations were overridden by human operators and whether those overrides were documented and audited. Marcus replied clearly, "Every override is logged, timestamped, and requires justification. Our system is designed to prioritize human judgment, especially in ambiguous or high-stakes situations." Next, Senator Maria Lopez raised ethical concerns. "Mr. Musk, can you guarantee that Grok will never autonomously authorize lethal action without explicit human consent? What safeguards prevent unintended escalation?" Elon responded thoughtfully. "Grok is not programmed to make autonomous lethal decisions. Ethical pause mechanisms require a human decision-maker's sign-off, and every action is recorded for accountability. However, no system is infallible, which is why continuous oversight and improvement are essential." Aisha Rivera added, "We embed ethical frameworks based on international laws of armed conflict, and Grok's algorithms flag any recommendation that violates these principles for immediate human review." The hearing grew more intense as members questioned data security and the insider threat incident. Senator Caldwell pressed about lessons learned and improvements made since the breach. Nadia outlined new security protocols, multi-factor authentication, real-time tamper detection, and enhanced internal audits. Several members probed potential bias in Grok's algorithms and whether the AI could be manipulated by adversaries to create false positives or escalate conflicts. Marcus acknowledged these risks and described layered cyber defenses, continuous validation models, and collaboration with intelligence agencies to mitigate manipulation. The tone shifted when civil rights advocate and witness Dr. Evelyn Thompson took the stand, emphasizing the need for transparency beyond closed military circles. "We must include civilian oversight and ensure the public understands AI's role and limits in war. Otherwise, we risk eroding trust and democratic accountability." This prompted debate on creating independent oversight bodies with civilian representation and rights to audit classified systems, a complex balance between security and transparency. Elon was asked about the global implications, especially regarding arms races and AI weapon proliferation. He stressed international cooperation, treaties, and open dialogue to prevent destabilizing competition. The hearing concluded with Senator Mitchell summarizing, "We stand at a pivotal moment. AI like Grok can revolutionize defense and save lives, but only if grounded in ethics, oversight, and public trust. Congress will continue rigorous review and demand accountability at every step. After the session, Elon and his team reflected on the experience. The hearing had been a trial by fire, intense, critical, and necessary. It forced xAI to clarify its commitments publicly and address complex concerns head-on. Nadia remarked, "We came prepared technically, but the real challenge was navigating the ethical and political landscape." Aisha added, "It reminded us that AI development isn't just about algorithms, it's about people, values, and accountability." The congressional hearing marked a defining moment in Grok's journey. It underscored that AI's integration into defense was not a purely technical achievement but a societal endeavor requiring transparency, trust, and ongoing dialogue. As the nation watched closely, Elon and the xAI team knew their work had only just begun. The future of AI-powered defense hinged not only on innovation but on earning and maintaining the public's faith in the choices being made. After the intense congressional hearing, the pressure on xAI to demonstrate Grok's capabilities, and its safeguards, intensified. The Pentagon proposed a large-scale, live-field exercise designed to test Grok in a complex, real-world scenario that combined cyber defense, tactical decision-making, and ethical oversight. This exercise would serve as both a proving ground and a public demonstration aimed at restoring confidence among skeptics and allies alike. The selected testing site was a sprawling military training range in Nevada, chosen for its diverse terrain and controlled environment, allowing simulated combat with minimal risk. Weeks of preparation involved coordination between xAI engineers, Pentagon officials, military units, and ethical oversight teams. Elon, Nadia, Marcus, and Aisha were deeply involved, ensuring that Grok's AI systems, audit trails, and ethical pause mechanisms were robust and transparent. The exercise began early on a crisp morning. The team gathered in a command center equipped with multiple screens displaying live feeds, data streams, and Grok's decision-making interface. Lieutenant Colonel James Hawthorne, the military liaison, briefed the assembled personnel. This exercise simulates a high-intensity conflict zone with multiple actors, including potential civilian presence and complex ethical dilemmas. Grok will assist commanders in threat assessment, resource allocation, and ethical compliance. As the exercise unfolded, Grok continuously processed data from drones, sensors, and human reports. It analyzed potential threats, suggested tactical maneuvers, and flagged decisions requiring human authorization. At one critical moment, Grok detected an unexpected vehicle approaching a restricted zone. The system classified it as a potential threat but also flagged uncertain data indicating possible civilian occupants. The interface immediately prompted an ethical pause requiring human input. Nadia, monitoring the feed, consulted with Colonel Hawthorne and the ethics oversight officer. After reviewing sensor data and communications, the team decided to hold fire and attempt communication instead, following Grok's cautious recommendation. The scenario escalated when simulated enemy forces launched a cyber attack aiming to disrupt Grok's data feeds. Marcus and the cyber defense team worked frantically to isolate and neutralize the intrusion while Grok adapted by shifting to redundant data sources and maintaining operational integrity. Throughout the exercise, Grok logged every decision, override, and system alert. Aisha monitored these logs in real time, ensuring that ethical parameters were respected and providing immediate feedback to the team. Observers from the Pentagon and independent ethics boards noted the system's performance, especially its ability to maintain transparency and human control under stress. By the final phase, Grok had demonstrated remarkable adaptability, identifying patterns that humans missed, optimizing resource deployment, and upholding ethical standards even amid chaos. The exercise concluded with a debriefing session where data was reviewed in detail. The Pentagon praised the collaboration and Grok's performance but also identified areas for improvement, including faster human-machine communication and enhanced contextual awareness to reduce false positives. Elon addressed the team, reflecting on the lessons learned. This exercise shows the potential of AI-human partnership in defense. But it also reminds us that vigilance, ethics, and continuous refinement are essential. Technology alone cannot guarantee safety or morality, only people can. The successful exercise shifted the narrative, offering tangible evidence that Grok could enhance defense capabilities while respecting human judgment and ethical boundaries. Public confidence began to rebuild, and international partners expressed renewed interest in collaboration. Yet, the journey was far from over. Grok's deployment into active operations would require constant evaluation, adaptation, and an unyielding commitment to transparency. As night fell over the Nevada range, the xAI team stood together, weary but hopeful. Grok had passed its most critical test yet, not just as a tool of war, but as a beacon of ethical innovation in an uncertain future. The testing ground was not the end but a new beginning, a proving ground where technology and humanity met to chart the path forward. Just as Grok's success in the Nevada exercise began to restore confidence, an unforeseen crisis erupted that tested the system, and the xAI team, in ways no one anticipated. Early one morning, an urgent alert came through the Pentagon's command center. Grok had detected anomalous cyber activity targeting critical infrastructure in the Midwest, power grids, communication networks, and emergency services. Initial assessments suggested a coordinated, high-level cyber attack, potentially orchestrated by a hostile foreign actor exploiting vulnerabilities in the interconnected systems. The stakes couldn't have been higher. If Grok failed to respond swiftly and accurately, millions of lives could be at risk, and national security would be severely compromised. Elon, Nadia, Marcus, and Aisha were summoned immediately to the Pentagon's crisis room. Grok's interface was flooded with real-time data streams, sensor alerts, and predictive models outlining potential attack vectors. The AI system began analyzing patterns, identifying weak points, and recommending countermeasures. But the complexity of the situation soon became apparent. The attack was multifaceted, targeting not only infrastructure but also attempting to infiltrate Grok's own neural networks. Marcus coordinated with Pentagon cyber defense teams, launching defensive protocols and deploying counter-hacking measures. Simultaneously, Grok issued tactical suggestions for isolating affected regions to contain the damage. However, the attack also involved deliberate misinformation. Spoofed signals and false flags designed to confuse Grok's decision-making processes and trigger erroneous defensive actions. The ethical dimension of the crisis surfaced sharply when Grok flagged a potential counterstrike recommendation against suspected sources. The system's ethical pause mechanism required human authorization before any offensive cyber action. Nadia and Colonel Hawthorne faced a profound dilemma: acting too quickly risked escalating the conflict unjustly, but hesitation could allow greater damage. The team convened an emergency ethics review, balancing the urgency of defense with the imperative to avoid unintended consequences. Aisha emphasized the gravity of the decision: we must remember that every action, even in cyberspace, has moral and geopolitical ramifications. Grok helps us see options clearly, but humans must bear responsibility. As the cyber attack intensified, Grok's algorithms detected subtle signals indicating the involvement of an unknown third party, an independent hacker collective with ambiguous motives, further complicating attribution and response strategies. Elon coordinated closely with intelligence agencies to clarify the situation, advocating for measured, transparent communication with the public to avoid panic. The hours stretched into a tense day of non-stop monitoring, analysis, and cautious action. Grok's advanced anomaly detection helped isolate compromised nodes and prevent cascading failures in the power grid. Meanwhile, Marcus's cyber team managed to contain the breach within Grok's own systems, ensuring the AI's operational integrity. By nightfall, the coordinated efforts paid off. The cyber attack was successfully mitigated without triggering offensive countermeasures, and emergency services began stabilizing critical infrastructure. The Pentagon held a press briefing, emphasizing Grok's vital role in early detection and defense, while acknowledging the ongoing investigation into the attackers. In the aftermath, the xAI team debriefed intensely. The attack had exposed vulnerabilities, technical, procedural, and ethical, that demanded urgent attention. Plans were set to strengthen Grok's resilience against misinformation, enhance human-machine communication in crisis scenarios, and expand ethical oversight protocols for cyber operations. Elon reflected on the ordeal. This challenge reminded us that AI systems operate in unpredictable, dynamic environments. The partnership between human judgment and machine intelligence is not optional, it's essential for navigating uncertainty. Nadia summarized the lesson: transparency, ethics, and flexibility must be embedded deeply. Grok's power comes with responsibility, and our work to safeguard that balance will never end. The unexpected challenge had tested Grok's capabilities and the team's resolve, but ultimately reinforced their commitment to building an AI that could adapt, learn, and uphold human values under pressure. As they prepared for the next phase, the stakes had never felt higher, but neither had their determination. The future of defense was no longer theoretical, it was unfolding in real time, demanding courage, wisdom, and collaboration at every turn. In the wake of the intense cyber attack and its successful containment, it became clear that Grok's potential, and vulnerabilities, could no longer be addressed by xAI and the Pentagon alone. The rapidly evolving landscape of AI-powered defense demanded broader collaboration, not just within the United States but across allied nations. Elon Musk and his team understood that forging international alliances would be crucial to shaping the future of AI ethics, security, and innovation. Within weeks, a high-level summit was convened at the Pentagon, bringing together representatives from NATO countries, key U.S. allies, and leading AI experts from academia and industry. The atmosphere was charged with urgency and cautious optimism. At the summit's opening, Secretary of Defense Ellen Crawford addressed the assembly. Grok has demonstrated transformative capabilities, but it has also exposed the complexities of integrating AI in defense. Our collective security depends on transparency, shared standards, and mutual trust. Today marks the beginning of a new era of alliance and accountability. Elon took the stage next, his voice steady yet passionate. AI is a tool shaped by those who build and govern it. We have a responsibility to ensure that its power is wielded ethically, responsibly, and collaboratively. Grok's success depends not only on technology but on the values we uphold together. Delegates discussed a broad agenda, establishing common ethical frameworks, sharing threat intelligence, coordinating AI research efforts, and developing protocols for joint operations involving AI assistance. The formation of the International AI Defense Consortium, IADC, was announced, a coalition dedicated to fostering transparency, security, and ethical standards in military AI applications. Nadia was appointed to lead the technical working group tasked with harmonizing AI interoperability across member nations. Her role involved bridging diverse legal, cultural, and operational perspectives, a daunting but vital challenge. The IADC's charter emphasized principles such as human control, accountability, respect for international law, and commitment to open dialogue. This represented a significant shift from unilateral development toward collective stewardship. Yet, skepticism and political realities remained. Some nations worried about technology transfer risks, others were concerned about surveillance and data privacy. Addressing these concerns required delicate diplomacy and transparent negotiations. Meanwhile, xAI's engineers collaborated with allied counterparts to integrate Grok's system into joint simulation exercises, testing cross-border command structures and AI decision sharing. The results were promising but highlighted the need for continuous refinement to accommodate different operational doctrines and legal constraints. Public communication became a cornerstone of the alliance's strategy. Recognizing past backlash, the IADC committed to releasing regular transparency reports, hosting public forums, and engaging with civil society organizations to build trust and foster informed discussion. Back home, the alliance reinvigorated morale within the xAI team. Elon remarked, "We are no longer just a company or a nation, we are part of a global community grappling with the future of AI in defense." This alliance is a beacon of hope amid uncertainty. However, the alliance's formation also attracted renewed scrutiny from adversaries. Intelligence reports indicated that hostile actors were accelerating their own AI programs and attempting to disrupt alliance communications through cyber and information warfare. The IADC responded by enhancing collective cyber defenses and launching joint counter-disinformation campaigns. In a private meeting, Elon, Nadia, and Pentagon officials strategized on maintaining the alliance's cohesion and technological edge. Nadia observed, "Building trust among allies is complex, but it's the only path forward. We must balance openness with security and ensure that ethical commitments are not just words but enforced standards." The alliance symbolized a critical turning point. AI-powered defense was no longer a zero-sum game but a shared challenge requiring cooperation, transparency, and shared values. As the IADC set out to define the ethical and operational landscape of military AI, Elon and the xAI team knew they were helping to shape a future where technology served humanity, not the other way around. The alliance was not just a political or technical agreement, it was a profound statement of collective responsibility in an age of unprecedented power and uncertainty. Together, they would navigate the promises and perils of AI-powered defense, hoping to build a safer, more ethical world. Despite the outward successes with Grok's deployment and the burgeoning international alliance, a quieter, more personal battle unfolded within the walls of xAI. The intense pressures of pioneering AI-powered defense, public scrutiny, and ethical complexities began to weigh heavily on the team, especially on Nadia Sanchez. She had risen rapidly from a software engineer to xAI's chief operations officer, leading critical decisions that balanced cutting-edge technology with moral responsibility. Yet, beneath her confident exterior, Nadia wrestled with doubts and fears. Late nights blurred into early mornings as she reviewed Grok's logs, ethical pause cases, and congressional reports. Each decision felt monumental, not just for national security but for the lives potentially affected. One evening, after a particularly grueling day navigating conflicting demands from Pentagon officials, advocacy groups, and her own team, Nadia found herself alone in the office, staring at a live feed from Grok's interface. A recent override had prevented a preemptive strike, but the aftermath was chaotic. Civilians in the simulated scenario suffered collateral damage, triggering an ethical crisis. She questioned if the system, despite all safeguards, could truly account for the unpredictable human element of war. At home, Nadia's relationship with her partner, Michael, grew strained. Michael was supportive but struggled to understand the moral weight Nadia bore. "You're trying to build a machine to control war," he said one night, frustration and concern evident. "How do you carry that without breaking?" Nadia admitted her fears but also her resolve. "It's not about controlling war. It's about reducing human error, saving lives. But it's imperfect, and that scares me." Within xAI, tension simmered. Some engineers argued for faster deployment and aggressive feature rollouts, confident in Grok's capabilities. Others, led by Aisha Rivera, advocated for caution and stronger ethical review, concerned about unintended consequences. This clash highlighted the broader dilemma facing AI innovators, the push for progress versus the responsibility to safeguard humanity. Elon Musk, aware of these internal struggles, convened a series of candid town halls. He encouraged open dialogue about fears, failures, and hopes. "We're not just building software, we're building the future of warfare and ethics," he told the team. "It's okay to be scared, but we can't let fear paralyze us. We learn, adapt, and hold each other accountable." Marcus Cole, the lead architect, reflected on the technical challenges and moral weight. Grok isn't just lines of code. It embodies choices about what to prioritize, what risks to take. We must never lose sight of the human lives behind those decisions. The company also expanded its support systems, providing counseling and ethical coaching for staff. Nadia sought solace and clarity through these resources, realizing that leadership meant embracing vulnerability as well as strength. The internal struggle deepened when a confidential audit revealed subtle biases in Grok's threat assessment algorithms, biases that could disproportionately affect certain populations or regions. This discovery prompted immediate action. A task force was formed to identify, analyze, and rectify these issues, and to strengthen transparency about AI decision-making processes. The experience was humbling. Nadia admitted in a company-wide meeting, "We must acknowledge imperfection and commit to continuous vigilance. Ethical AI is a journey, not a destination." The internal challenges at xAI mirrored the broader societal questions about AI's role in warfare, privacy, and power. The team's struggles highlighted the necessity of blending technological innovation with empathy, humility, and shared responsibility. As Grok's story advanced, Nadia understood that the battle was not only against external threats but also within, between ambition and caution, hope and fear, technology and humanity. These internal conflicts, though difficult, strengthened the team's resolve to build an AI that honored life, upheld justice, and embraced the complexity of moral choices in a turbulent world. The future remained uncertain, but Nadia and xAI were determined to face it together, with honesty and courage. After years of relentless innovation, ethical debates, political battles, and personal struggles, the story of Grok and xAI reached a profound turning point. The culmination of technology, human will, and collective responsibility had shaped not only a revolutionary AI but a broader dialogue about the future of defense and humanity itself. In the months following the formation of the International AI Defense Consortium and the internal reforms at xAI, Grok's deployment expanded carefully but steadily. Military commanders reported enhanced decision-making speed and accuracy, reduced casualties in training simulations, and an unprecedented level of transparency through the system's detailed audit trails and ethical pause mechanisms. Public trust, once fractured by fear and skepticism, began to heal as government briefings, independent reports, and civil society engagement brought clarity and accountability. For Nadia Sanchez, the journey had transformed her in ways she never anticipated. From a talented engineer driven by technical curiosity, she had evolved into a leader deeply attuned to the ethical and emotional weight of her work. In quiet moments, she reflected on the early nights haunted by doubt and the recent triumphs born of resilience and teamwork. "Life is full of surprises," she often mused, echoing a lesson she had shared with her team. "But love, compassion, and the courage to face uncertainty, that's what will always lead the way." Elon Musk's vision of AI as a tool to augment, not replace, human judgment had been tested repeatedly. His commitment to transparency and ethics set a new standard in an industry often criticized for secrecy. In a candid interview, Elon remarked, "Technology alone cannot solve our biggest challenges. It's how we integrate our values, our empathy, and our willingness to learn from mistakes that determines whether AI will be a force for good or harm." The International AI Defense Consortium continued to foster collaboration across borders, creating a framework where competing interests could align around shared principles of human dignity and peace. This alliance represented a hopeful blueprint for navigating the complex interplay of security, sovereignty, and ethics in an increasingly interconnected world. Meanwhile, the internal culture at xAI shifted profoundly. The company embraced ongoing education in ethics, mental health support for staff, and a culture of openness that encouraged raising concerns without fear. Nadia's leadership had inspired a generation of technologists who understood that their creations bore a responsibility far beyond lines of code. As Grok's technology matured, it also spurred broader conversations about AI in civilian life, healthcare, education, climate science, reminding society that innovation carried both promise and peril. The story closed not on a definitive endpoint but on a continuum of learning and growth. Grok symbolized both humanity's extraordinary potential and its profound challenges. Its journey was a testament to resilience, ethical vigilance, and the power of collaboration. For the American public and the world, the tale of xAI and Grok was a mirror reflecting fears, hopes, and the enduring belief that even in the darkest moments, humanity's compassion and wisdom could light the way forward. The final words echoed Nadia's message to all who followed their story. In a world where change is constant and uncertainty is our only certainty, never forget that it is our humanity, our love, our courage, our commitment to each other, that will always define our future. This was not just the end of Grok's story, but the beginning of a new chapter for AI, defense, and the human spirit. The journey continued, with all its challenges, surprises, and, ultimately, its hope. Hit subscribe and leave a comment with where you're watching from. This story might just spark a new beginning. What's one thing that always pushes you forward, even when things get tough?